get started here with our leadership panel. Hopefully everyone had a good lunch. Was it a good lunch? Pretty good? Yes. All right. I'm so hungry I haven't had time to eat yet, so have to live through you. All right, looks like we're all set up here. We're good to go? All right, on the dot, look at this. Oh, where's Philip? Paging Philip. I'll go find him. I'm gonna hand this microphone over to Dell. He's gonna be our moderator. I just wanna say again, thank you to every one of you who are here today, the audience and our panel. So please give yourselves the loudest round of applause you can, because I want people in the hallway to hear you. There we go. Excellent. All right, so today we have representation from our own water utility authority here in Albuquerque, Bernalillo County. We have Sarah from CISO. We have Ryan from the FBI. We have Anthony from the city. A couple of, former colleagues there until the recent disconnection between the utility and the city government. And then we have Demetrius with the state. So thank you all for being here today. I'm going to hand it over to you, Dell. Take it away.
Awesome. Hello. Test, check. All right, can everybody hear me? Yes. All right, awesome. Well, welcome. Welcome to the CISO panel, CISO and leadership, cyber leadership. And I want to, again, reiterate and thank everyone on this panel for saying yes to being on the panel. I know it's not always fun at times to do public speaking, but as a leader, that's one of the things that you have to do. You have to, put yourself out there and, make sure that you communicate and get your point across. One of the important things about this panel that I want everyone to understand and to know kind of our goal and what we want to get to. Our goal is to have you, the audience, understand what it takes to become a leader, right? And so we're not going to get into questions that go deep into, what's the 7 layers of the OSI model, right? No, we're going to get deeper into questions about traits of leadership. We're going to get into questions about their thoughts on AI, and we're going to get into their thoughts of how they became a leader and what are the things that they look for in future leaders, and how you can become a future leader if that's a path that you want to take. So, with that being said, what I'd like to do is I'd like to start off quickly and have each person introduce themselves and just kind of say what they do at their organization. And here's Phil.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, you're good.
Hey,
Hey, if you're going to be late to anything, it's good to be late to your funeral, Philip has joined us. I'm going to start at the end with Cody. So Cody, go ahead and state who you are, who you work for, and we're going to go right down the line. Yeah, we're not hearing you. So is that button? Did that die? There it goes.
Y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Cody Stinson, Chief Information Officer for the local water utility here. Just glad to be here. I've been in my position for almost 13 years now with the utility as a CIO. It's been enlightening watching how cybersecurity is not even the influence, but really taking over some of our workspaces, right? They impact other groups more so than I ever imagined. So it's been fun navigating that, securing that, right? At the utility here, we have both enterprise and process area networks that we have to secure, and that's been very challenging given the remote nature of our water distribution system. So anyway, glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Cody. Again, what Cody does is he resides over the protection of our water system here in Albuquerque. So it's a very important job, and we appreciate him for that. Next, Sarah.
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Gamble. I'm a supervisor
Supervisory Protective Security Advisor with CISO, which is the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency under the Department of Homeland Security. I'm your resource here. I cover the state of New Mexico and oversee our work here in New Mexico and in Texas. And I also have two colleagues, some of you may know them already. Andy Bushbaum, he's our state cybersecurity coordinator. He's based in Santa Fe, but covers the state as well as Felix Villa, who is based in El Paso, but also supports the southern portion of the state. He's one of our cybersecurity advisors. So for those of you, you likely would have worked with them mostly as opposed to me, but happy to be here on their behalf since they can't join today, and look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, next, Ryan.
Hey, I'm Ryan Davis. I am a special agent with the FBI working cyber cases. I've been doing that for 3 years now.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Anthony.
Hi, Anthony Balla, Information Security Officer for the City of Albuquerque. We support about 6,000 employees plus contractors and temp workers across just about almost 30 departments that sometimes act like 30 different companies. So it's a lot to support, and it's definitely challenging and rewarding at the same time.
Yeah, and I know all about that. And again, you know, not only just 6,000 employees, but also, you know, over 500,000 Albuquerque citizens. You know, any of your information that's submitted to the city, he also protects that.
Yeah, I was surprised by the stat that Albuquerque is actually the 33rd largest city in the country. So
That's crazy, right? I'd rather be on that list than on some of the other lists.
Amen.
All right. Next, we have Demetrius.
My name is Demetrius Brandon. I am the Chief Information Security Officer for the Healthcare Authority. At the Healthcare Authority, we provide services in healthcare, income support, and other services to the citizens of New Mexico. And that entails a lot of federal and state health and other personal identifiable information. And so my job is to oversee the protection of that data.
Awesome. And we thank you for that, sir. Appreciate it. And last, certainly not least, Phil.
Yeah, so I'm Philip Wiley. I'm the evangelist, the extended IoT security evangelist at Phosphorus Cybersecurity. We're a solution that protects IoT and OT environments. My background's offensive security, so I've been in cybersecurity for over 21 years. Most of my career has been spent on the offensive security side, and I leverage that threat actor mindset to assess companies and look for risks.
All right, awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and jump right into the questions. And like I said, we're not going to get super technical here. What we're going to jump into is we're going to get to the emotion of being a leader. We're going to get into talking about how they personally ground themselves. So let's go into to my first question to the panel here. And my first question is during times of crisis, how do you ground yourself? How do you keep yourself calm, and how do you address a very stressful situation whenever that comes up? And you don't have to disclose the situation. I know there's sensitivity around that, but how do you ground yourself? And it doesn't have to be work things. How do you do that? Let's start with Demetrius. Let's go.
I think that what I first do is assess the situation, right? Is it as serious as someone has said that it actually is? And then based on that, then you design your avenue to approach it. Hopefully you have systems and strategies already in place in the way of business continuity, disaster recovery, et cetera. And then you execute on those plans.
Okay. Awesome. That's great. All right. Anybody want to expand or jump in on that? I'm gonna start pointing. Let's go to Sarah.
Well, thanks. I think one of the things from my standpoint that's really beneficial is first, prior to an incident, really investing in the partnerships both within your team and across your organization, as well as external to the organization. If I often think of it in the context of sort of train like you fight, right? You need to know who's on your team and what assets and resources they have. You have to have good lines of dialogue and communication. You need to understand you have across the entire organization to leverage depending on the circumstances. And then know who your partners are external to the agency that you can lean on if you find yourself in a situation that might exceed your capacity. Because if you have all of that foundational knowledge and you have good lines of communication, you're not in the moment of scrambling to figure out who the right point of contact is, or who has the right expertise, or who has the right resource. If it's not within your own organization, you already have that knowledge in place and a support network to kind of lean on. So I would just offer that as kind of a foundational principle.
Awesome. All right. This next question I'm going to direct to Cody. Okay. So when you're sitting down with the team and you have situations that you need to talk to about cybersecurity, and whether you're sitting down with Mark and some of the other people that are on your team, what are the conversations like within that group? Give the audience a sense of how do you guys approach it? Are you guys loose and free? Are you guys very regimented? How do you approach these cyber situations that can typically pop up? And it's kind of a play on the previous question.
I would say it's more regimented, right? I mean, given the nature of cybersecurity today, we have, playbooks, do tabletop exercises so that when events occur, we've kind of scripted out, that's what it's going to be. In terms of communication with upper management, it's always, for me, it's like, you can't prevent everything. So it's not, it's not an if, it's a when, and how prepared are you to deal with that, right? Not only from just a response standpoint, but making sure you have disaster recovery, things of that nature in place so that if you are compromised, you have the ability to stand up your priority workloads in another environment with as little downtime as possible, right? So that's, so I would say.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Philip, I'm going to give you the same question. So basically, when you're around leadership and you're coming across a situation, whether it be with clients or whatever the case, what are the conversations like?
Sure, I think one of the things you need to make sure you're doing too is really be organized with it, because if you're not keeping good notes and you're not staying organized, you make it a lot less productive, and you cause a little more panic. And I think one of the things too is trying to keep the others calm. You mentioned earlier how you kind of stay calm or whatever. You just really need to, all that you're engaging with is try to keep them calm, because when people kind of get upset and emotions get involved, things get overlooked. I think we need to look at the basic type of things too, because sometimes some incidents are not as complex as we think. You see some of these breaches in the news and you think it's some elaborate hack, and it was something like an S3 bucket, wasn't secured well, or an open share. So just kind of the basics. I think that's really the key to everything, is to start with the basics and don't overcomplicate it, and just kind of gradually get into it as you investigate the situation and advance the complexity from there.
Awesome. All right.
I would just wanted to add that you definitely want to have some kind of risk. How are you going to frame that risk to your upper management who may not be technical, and how to keep the language and the terminology in a simple language that these higher executives can easily digest, and without inserting fear and uncertainty. I think you have to, as a leader, you have to fall back to what is it that we actually know and have proof of, and then being able to describe, what are the potential consequences of what you know to be true today. That is probably a practice that we're all, always sharpening our skills, and it's a never learning. I don't think anybody masters it. There's always some improvement on every single security situation or event that comes up, that you're basically employing these principles. So.
Awesome. And speaking of fear, Ryan with the FBI, and the reason why I laugh is, as Ryan knows me very well, when I worked for the city of Albuquerque, I had situations that did invoke fear, where they came in and they had to talk to me about certain situations. So Ryan, as I know I've asked this group different questions but you're in a little bit different situation, because you're coming in because you have information that something could be happening, and you also know that you could also be invoking that fear, which is something that I had whenever you came through the door. But how do you kind of temper that? How do you approach an organization that might be having a problem or might be having an issue that they're unaware of? How do you go about doing that?
Well, I think it depends on the circumstances and the level of severity, but usually I just try to reach out to the most technically skilled person first, because if you just start talking to a manager about, just having to hear from the FBI in general and talking about a cybersecurity concern is just going to probably raise more alarm bells than what is actually needed. So yeah, if I can start the conversation with a person who actually can just boots on the ground, works cybersecurity, will understand the concepts that I'm talking about. Usually I can kind of just be a little bit more straightforward. It won't invoke as much of an alarmist response. And then from there, start to incorporate talking with management, whatever I need to do, or if they want to do it themselves. But yeah, I think just kind of cutting to the chase with the person who actually will be able to solve the problem is my usual approach with how I'm going to handle providing that kind of potentially disturbing information.
All right, so you practitioners out there, you hear that, right? The FBI is going to go in and talk to the most technical person. So that just goes to show that leadership is not the first person you really need to go to solve the problems, right? And I'm being facetious. But so thank you, Ryan, for that. So next, what I want to get into, with a show of hands, how many people know what zero trust is? Raise your hand. All right, awesome. How many people actually have implemented zero trust? Ooh, okay. Okay, it's also yeah, okay. All right, awesome. So my next question to the panel is about zero trust, and it's about implementation of zero trust. And again, like I said, it's not gonna get super technical. Basically, my question is around, the principles of zero trust, understanding how are you going to implement it within your organization. Have you implemented parts of it? Is it a part of your roadmap? Just kind of get into some of the things with that. And I'm just gonna go right down the line here with Phil.
Sure. A lot of solutions can make your life easier when trying to implement something like zero trust. There's a product out there, ThreatLocker, and one of the things it does is it takes processes and applications that should be trusted and blocks by default. You have to allow things. So while you're going in and doing the setup of zero trust, doing network segmentation and putting all into place, a solution like this you can put in place that kind of gives you a lot of impact early on, and it kind of even goes beyond the just applying zero trust in general, because one of the things threat actors leverage is living off the land binaries. As security's evolved and gotten better, these endpoint protection systems are making it more difficult to get a foothold, and threat actors are having to leverage things like living off the land binaries and actual authorized tools in those systems to exploit those systems. So these are things you have to watch there. I mean, a recent Black Hills, that's actually probably a couple years old now, they kind of mentioned in Black Hills Information Security, mentioned how a lot of attacks are coming from other systems outside of just the endpoints. And another example is the Acura ransomware. They couldn't get a foothold in that environment because endpoints were too secure. They exploited a webcam. I think they had like default credentials, did an SMB share to the internal network, and then spread the ransomware that way. So I think when you look at zero trust in your environment in general, we need to look at everything. Some of the things you may think that are not a risk, like your IoT, OT devices, even video cameras, because cameras outside of you get a foothold environment, cameras can expose sensitive data and private information to threat actors. Threat actors can get information from that, so we need to look at a holistic approach to make sure we're securing everything.
Oh yeah, and you mentioned, IoT devices, things that we, typically will put on our network and not think twice about, right? We trust it, right? So that coffee pot that can automatically start brewing at a specific time, but it needs to be connected to the internet, we'll just plug it in and say, okay, that's perfect. I don't have to worry about it. And, with zero trust principles, you would not trust that device at all, and it would have to be authenticate or whatever the case every single time. So no, that's great. Thank you for that. Demetrius?
I think that we've implemented zero trust across the network in most instances, right? The initial authentication, and as you move from system to system, and even periodic re-authentication, right? But the interconnected systems are a challenge, particularly with APIs, interconnecting with your systems. So we need to enhance our zero trust strategy to account for interconnected systems.
Awesome. All right. And Anthony?
Yeah, I'm gonna focus more so on some of the challenges that we have on the topic.
Because that's the thing. I've been there. I know
Yeah.
that there's challenges implementing. I mean, in the beginning, and I still think it's the case. It's understanding what zero trust is. It can mean something different to each different organization, right? So, and you don't want to hinder productivity, right?
Exactly. So, like I said, we're close to 30 city departments that basically behave like their own businesses. Sometimes well, I'll say most of the time, it's a challenge. Where do you insert IT approval or any kind of security approval process in their purchasing process without hindering, a lot of the times we won't even be notified until it's already bought and you're reading about it on the news and in your head, well, that is still going through security review. So you're having to deal with some different cycles with dealing with these organizations. So it's not, I would say that there's definitely a challenge, so we don't always know what's being plugged into the network. So that's presents itself into problems that often surface down the line, and it's usually when there's a problem with a device or a device is suddenly doing something that other devices are complaining about. So then that's when we find out about it, and because we don't necessarily have a good inventory of what's on the network, or Department XYZ didn't say, hey, we're going to be hooking up this whole infrastructure here to do whatever. The IT security team doesn't know, and we're basically investigating at ground zero. And first, little simple things that we all take for granted, such as identifying which device it is and where is it at, can take 10 times the amount of effort than it should. So it's very, very challenging, at least in our environment. There's things that we're doing to address it more so on the policy side, but with city policy, it's a longer process to actually get these things approved and processed. We definitely have a robust approval cycle at the city, and so that's what we're looking to kind of addressing from a policy side, and then you also have your audits. Sometimes I know Dell and I, we came up from the accounting structure, so it's ingrained with us that auditors be scared. Auditors weren't a good thing when you're in finance arenas. But here in security, I think one of the things that was interesting to learn was a complete shift in that philosophy that the auditors can be your friends to help accelerate some of these policies that you need. Maybe you've been talking to this department about whatever, and you haven't been successful in getting any kind of movement. All of a sudden, if it's an audit finding, now you got some wind in your sails, and you could have some of that momentum to get you going and cross the line and actually accomplish some things that you're looking to do. So I would say that was coming from an accounting background, that switch into into auditors and looking at them differently, and even to the extent that you can even point them in certain directions where you're having some issues with whatever it is, leverage those audits that your organization is already doing or performing, assuming that it's third party, and they can definitely help move any of your security policies forward that you might have been stuck getting out of the gate for various reasons.
Yeah, no, I think that's great, and, you know, I always, you know, as Anthony says, I always leverage audits to help me also buy products too, right? Products that you know that's gonna help your organization. It's not just for leaders, it's also for practitioners. You know, if you're running up against something and you're like, hey, that's a part of our audit, not part of our GRC, and we need to implement this product, you can leverage that, you know, so Anthony, thank you for that. I'm gonna shift gears here with Ryan. We're gonna talk about the public-private partnership, right? And so that's where my question is gonna, you know, kind of revolve around. I wanna understand, you know, what is a successful, you know, public-private partnership look like to you, in your eyes, you know, being, you know, with the FBI and then working with the different private organizations or public organizations, but that partnership that what you guys bring. Can you explain?
Sure, yeah. So the FBI in the past decade or so has gotten a lot better at being able to share information with private sector, and so that does start to open up kind of a two-way street to where traditionally you might expect the FBI is just hoovering up all of the information, but guarding it closely because it is difficult for us to release information when we have open investigations. But other cybersecurity laws have passed that make it much easier for us to share information. And that just makes it a lot easier for us to begin to develop relationships with you guys here, with community partners, to where not only can we tackle cybersecurity threats together, but it's also not just a one-way street, and it just feels awkward anyway. So I'm always happy to be able to share any information that I can. I enjoy being able to come out to this kind of stuff, and the Chili Sec, which has been mentioned multiple times, and just being a part of the groups where we can collaborate. And again, you know, first and foremost, I'm a law enforcement officer. I am not a extremely skilled technical wizard by any means, so I do rely on the experts here in this room in order to conduct cyber investigations. So I don't want it to be a one-way street. So because these are global threats and cyber actors that are far more sophisticated than I'll ever be, I rely on you guys. So like I said, just by being able to share information, develop relationships outside through groups like Chili Sec, just helps that free flow of information and that collaborative effort in tackling these big threats.
All right, awesome. Same question for Sarah.
Yeah, thanks. So I mentioned initially the importance of partnership as an organizational leader, but that really applies across the board when we're thinking about broader risk issues. Within CISO specifically, our role at the federal level is to serve as the nation's risk manager and coordinator for infrastructure security and resilience. But the reality is that, right, majority of infrastructure is privately owned and operated. It's not something that we can manage, control, direct, right? So it requires partnership in order for us to collaboratively understand what the current and potential future threat landscape looks like and partner on how to mitigate that threat collectively. There are a lot of different ways to do that, but you know, if you think about it very locally, I'm not in everybody's backyard. I don't want to be in everybody's backyard, just to be clear, but there are a lot of things that you may see as a one-off or a blip or something. In reality, that's an indicator of a potential threat actor that's maybe testing the waters or maybe initiating something that is going to spread into something much larger. And having an open line of communication with CISO, with the FBI, with the State Fusion Center, with your local partners is really critical, not only to addressing what your immediate needs are related to that incident, but trying to get ahead of any potential further cascade of that particular impact. Or if somebody hasn't actually executed an attack, we can identify those indicators, share that information more broadly with other infrastructure partners within the appropriate sectors, and then everyone can take the necessary actions to mitigate the exposure they might have to that threat so they don't become a victim. So really, being able to know who are your partners that you can share information with, what resources you have to leverage through those partnerships so that you can be better educated, and then collectively working together to raise the level of security across the board for our infrastructure.
Awesome. All right, next question. And before we do that, I'm going to take a survey. Mark Leach, earlier, the CIO for the city of Albuquerque, it talked about AI. And so my next question, obviously, is going to be about AI. First question, very easy. How many of you, show of hands, how many of you use AI in your day-to-day lives? Okay, that's good. That's really good. How many use it in their professional lives? And be honest. Okay, all right, awesome. All right, so obviously, you know, the reason why I asked those two questions is because in your personal life, yes, there are personal things that you can put within those models. And then in your private, in your professional life, there are certain things that you can put in those models. And I know what the panel is afraid of is putting data and information in there that is critical, mission critical to the organization. And just being mindful of that and understanding that all it takes is the right prompt engineering to pull that information out for somebody that's savvy enough on the other end. They can do that without even having to go into your organization. So with that, my question, again, it's not going to get super technical. My question is what keeps you up at night with AI, or what do you love about AI as far as using it within your organization or using it personally? So let's start on the end with Cody. First of all, do you use AI? Because I know you.
I've dabbled with it.
You dabble? Yeah, okay.
I would say the Skynet proposition is what keeps me up at night, right?
Yeah.
Taking over.
Yeah, Skynet.
All jokes aside, it's really more for, I guess, considered as data security. We have data sets that need to be secure, so making sure that, that's controlled is paramount. So we're taking baby steps with that, right? It's not really a global adoption across the authority that we're using AI. Small use cases we are, but we've chosen to kind of lag back a little bit and see kind of how it unfolds before we can, truly leverage the tool. So
That's great. That's great. Sarah.
Yeah, I think, as was indicated by everybody's response, AI is just this awesome capability, right? It can help make our lives so much more efficient and streamline business processes. But the technology is rapidly evolving and the adoption rates are so high that it's really easy to fall behind the curve on security, I think. And from our standpoint at CISO, you need to really ensure that you're integrating security considerations from the very beginning of thinking about integrating or adopting AI, whether it's purchasing a capability or using an app or whatever, or if you're building your own, making sure that you're integrating security principles into everything from the very beginning of the development phase all the way through the life cycle of utilization of those AI solutions, because it's really easy otherwise to kind of lose sight of that and find that the technology has moved much faster than the security protections that you have in place.
Awesome. Ryan. And I know you guys ain't allowed to use this.
Yeah, I think I'd get into some trouble if I entered some classified information into an AI. Yeah, so I rely on people like all of you to tell me whether or not I need to be concerned about AI, because you can ask 10 people and get 10 different opinions. But as far as AI right now, the biggest thing that we're concerned about, that we're monitoring closely, is just that it is making fraudsters and bad actors just streamlines their workflow. They can be much more efficient, whether it's jailbreaking some AI and being able to work on their code, or if it's just making deepfakes. We come across a new cyber fraud swindle every single day, and they're just becoming more sophisticated, harder to detect, and it's definitely a growing problem for us.
All right, awesome, thank you. Anthony.
All right. So AI, I don't think we can make it to a conference these days without having an AI topic being brought up. But personally, I'm very excited. I've looked in my background. I'm part of that old generation where the internet came about, and I remember making HTML pages with a text editor, So I fall back to, what kind of, what have I seen that's been like this in my, lifetime? And I would have to say, back in the early internet days and the dot-com boom. I would say that the only thing that's changed is things are going to accelerate 100 or 1,000 times faster than what we saw and experienced with the internet coming about. So it can be very exciting. I personally subscribe to the saying "as above, so below." As it gets really exciting, there's also the other side of the evil side, if you will. Everything seems to apply a certain kind of a balance. So as we see AI capable of doing great and tremendous things, just remember that on the other side of the fence, it's also going to be turned against us in ways that we haven't even thought of yet. So what I'm looking forward to is people with small security teams or being asked to do more with less is using AI to manage all those points of indicators, all the logs, correlate data. It's tremendous. The last time I looked, the city processes about just over 1 petabyte of data through their switches each month. So that generates a lot of logs and a lot of endpoints, and it's impossible to expect a security team to be looking at all these pieces of information. So it's more become a survival tool, I think, for us as we see some of our vendors build in these AI capabilities into these existing tools. It's been a real force multiplier, if you will, for some of the tools that we've had for years, and it's great to see them getting better and improving.
Awesome, thank you. Demetrius.
I'm excited about artificial intelligence systems. The benefit, of course, is, as was previously mentioned, log analysis. We generally have a log ingestion rate. We purchase about 200 gig per day, right? But being able to analyze those logs is impossible. But the thing that concerns me about the use of AI, particularly by our end users, a lot of the federal systems require that the data not leave the continental United States. So when you're putting that data, or if you put that data into a system, where is that analysis actually being done? So you have to make sure that it's on a federal and moderate data center. But you also have to be concerned about whether that information, I'll give you an example. A user reached out to me wanting to use an AI system for translation. Okay, I understand that it will do that, but where is it doing the analysis of that? Yeah.
Exactly. No, we definitely have to be careful of that. Phil.
Sure. Yeah, I've got 2 points that everyone's had some great observations and experiences that they shared. A couple things I think we got to really look at is people are going to use it. You shouldn't discourage them. This should be part of your security awareness program and just even AI training in general. Teach people how to use it securely so that way it's a little lower risk. And another thing that we need to think about too is companies are having pen tests performed. Any of your applications or systems that have AI integrated, we need to be testing those because some cases you may have an AI chatbot on a web application or your website and that gets overlooked. This is, these are the new threat vectors that threat actors are looking for, trying to breach, trying to exploit, and now since they're lesser known and more complicated and misunderstood, so they're not being secured as well, we really need to focus on assessing those different AI technologies.
All right, awesome. All right, last question that I have for the group, and a lot of you out here are practitioners, some of you are students, some of you are either looking to get into the cybersecurity realm or get into potentially becoming a leader, maybe one day having one of these jobs here. So my question to the panel, if you had one piece of advice that you would give to the audience here about becoming a leader, being in your job, what would that advice be? So let's start with Phil.
My advice is gonna be a little more broader because, and this goes across no matter what level you're at, is networking. Get out and network with people. You can learn so much. There's lessons and things you can learn here outside of this ballroom. You can talk to people one-on-one, learn what they're doing. Just get out there and network, and don't wait for conferences, because conferences aren't as frequent as your local meetups, your ISACA groups, your ISSA groups, OWASP, your DEF CON groups, some of the different CISO organizations. Get out there and continually network. And as far as a leader goes, if you're looking for practitioners, there's not a better way than going out into the network, into these different conferences and events and meetups, and meet people face to face. Those that I know that are in leadership, that are looking for talent, has a lot easier job if they're out involved in the community.
Awesome. Demetrius.
My advice would be that you should understand, if you're looking to go into the cybersecurity side, that most cybersecurity jobs are not entry-level jobs. So you should become proficient in some area of IT, whether that's systems, networking, what have you, and then leverage that to choose which area of cybersecurity you would like to pivot into.
Great advice. Anthony.
Yeah, I'll just add to what's already been said. I think having a mindset of being curious and always progressing your skills and learning more. I think you'd have to have your head in the sand here to not see all the opportunities that are afforded to you to learn into that next position that you want to. Your mindset is, that's my goal is to become X, Y, Z. What is it that XYZ does? I think you can explore that right where you're at. I don't think there is a manager that would say, no, or not come up with some kind of a project or task that won't help you further your skills and understanding of that next step in your career. So, networking, getting plugged into different organizations. The people that you meet in this room are, very connected in the state of New Mexico. Albuquerque itself is such a tight-knit security meeting. All you need to do is hit one of us, and you have access to a whole bunch of resources. Getting plugged into the ChiliSec website, there is a lot of opportunities shared there, whether it be free training, capture the flag events. One of our vendors a couple months ago had a capture the flag event that was free. It was posted on ChiliSec. It was hosted over at the one of the facilities on the east side of the city. Very accessible. Having that curiosity and that continuous learning ethic. Tools come and go. We can teach tools, we can teach skills, but that mindset, that work ethic, communication, people skills are something that are much harder to teach. So.
Awesome. Thank you. Cody. If somebody wanted to be CIO of water, what advice would you give them? And this is amazing. Aren't you retiring soon?
After 3 bad days, that's the way to work, right? So 3 consecutive bad days, I'll decide to hang it up. But haven't had one yet, so there you go.
Yeah.
It's a great question. I would say a couple of points. When I got into IT, I enjoyed the technical aspect of it. So as you progress into leadership, most likely you will let go of your technical responsibility, right? So I would say if that's the route you choose, and you really like the technical aspect of it, leadership may or may not be the path that you want to go, right? Because it inherently takes away the technical part of your job to some extent. You do more of things like this, like I'm doing now, right? So, second, I would say, learning to be, for me, it's being a servant leader. Like I think in my situation, in most of our situations, we're never the expert in the situation. Everyone else is. So, being just making ensure your staff have the resources they do to fulfill the needs of the organization. That's their paramount. So,
All right, awesome. Yeah, and you're right. Again, you do let go of the technical side of it, but I will say that technical side of it plays in to some of the leadership decisions that you make within your organization. And it's always good as a leader to be able to talk to your, to your team and being able to understand what they're saying. Well, that's all for today. I want to thank the panel here for not only just telling us about what cybersecurity is and just telling us what leadership is, but actually telling us about themselves and sharing, a piece of themselves with us today. So let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you all very much. You are welcome to disband at this time. Real quick, Mark, if you're in the room, can you come and see over there? Thank you again, panel. Can you give the panel a big round of applause here?